and I want to talk about climate change. The US-based Women's Environment and Development Organisation, I think you say it WEDO, tells us, and I'm quoting directly from them here, that the world's poor suffer most from erratic weather and its disruptions because they live in substandard housing in marginal land, subject to drought and flood, or in crowded urban areas, lacking essential services. And women are the majority of the world's poor. In Bangladesh in 1991, 71 out of every 1,000 women were killed in a cyclone and flood that happened. 15 out of every 1,000 men were killed. Of those killed in the 2004 Asian tsunami, up to 70% were women. In the Darfur region of Sudan, Beto continues, where desertification has plagued the land in recent decades, homes are often destroyed, campaigns of intimidation, rape or abduction are waged, and thousands of women and children are caught in the crossfire. The vast majority of the world's refugees are women and children. Lest we think that this is a third world phenomenon, WEDO tells us that 70% of the deaths during the 2003 European heatwave were women. And further, as we all saw in the telly a couple of years ago, in the US, in New Orleans, Hurricane Katrina drove poor women further into poverty and illness. They were forced into overcrowded living conditions, which raised the incidence of domestic abuse. Loss of childcare facilities has cost many their jobs and health benefits. When the very climate changes because of man-made activities, and I use the term advisedly, when being a woman is a risk factor as the climate changes, I'd argue that we need feminism. There are a couple of reasons why I've drawn on these two areas: sexual slavery, the most profound form of male violence, and climate change, the result of profound exploitation of the earth, to argue that we need feminism. The first is that, obviously, these two areas, violence and environmental exploitation, are of huge importance to women. They are where we see the impact of inequality on us, and it is stark and staggering. Secondly, though, without wanting to be simplistic, I'd argue, like many feminists before, that there's a further relationship between the two areas. I'd argue that violence against women parallels the exploitation of the environment. Women and the earth are too often seen as infinitely able to meet the needs of men, as having no real intrinsic value, as by nature exploitable, as an inexhaustible resource to be plundered. It's no coincidence, and I'm certainly not the first person to point it out, that the environment is often called Mother Earth. Feminism gives us the tools to make that analysis. Monica's book, as she mentioned earlier, talks about the fact that many women don't call themselves feminists because they don't feel confident to. They feel they haven't read the right feminist books or studied the right feminist course. I'd argue that feminism isn't a test you can fail. It's not an ideology you have to subscribe to. It's not a club you have to join. It's not a religion where you need to learn the dogma or keep faith. It's about taking our experiences and the experiences of other women, taking them seriously and analysing the world as if we matter. It's about women finding solutions. It's not duty, it's not obligation. It's not a debt to our mothers or our grandmothers. Simone de Beauvoir said, defending the truth, and I think that's what feminism does, what feminists do. We defend the truth about our bodies, our lives, our loves, our planet. Defending the truth is not something one does out of a sense of duty or to allay guilt complexes, but is a reward in itself. She says further, I tore myself away from the safe comfort of certainties through my love for the truth, and the truth rewarded me. The suffragists and the suffragettes fought for freedom, not, I think, to reimpose on women a sense of duty, whether they're young or old. I don't think we need to go back to the struggles of previous feminists because we have a duty. We'll go back to them because we understand our link to them and because we want to celebrate and learn from them. They found feminism, even when they didn't call it that, because they needed it. It's the same today. Feminists will continue because it gives us the tools we need, gives us a way of thinking we need. Going back to the issue of climate change and back to the Women's Environment and Development Organisation, they show very simply how feminism makes a difference to this huge problem, both in terms of insisting on noticing women, bringing that collective understanding that Adrian Rich talked about, and in terms of recognising that women have solutions. They say, and again I quote directly from them, women produce 60 to 80% of the household food supply in most developing countries. During a drought in Micronesia, and these are particular examples, women sought and found a new source of potable water before government officials recognised them as a key to the solution. In Kenya, where communities were suffering from a lack of natural resources, Wangari Maathai, a great green, if I can be partisan for a minute, started the Green Belt movement to plant trees, replenishing resources and reducing vulnerability to climate change. And of course she won the Nobel Peace Prize in part for that. And a recent study in Sweden shows that women's carbon footprint is smaller than men's. We account for only 25% of car usage, or at least the women in Sweden in this study did, and own 1/3 of cars. They're saying, I think without using these words, that we need feminism if we're going to survive. It's the same if we look at trafficking, at sexual slavery. Sexual slavery was recognised by the High Court case because women, including and especially trafficked women, insisted that they existed, insisted that their stories mattered, insisted that the violence against them was both real and wrong. When people with authority, as Rich put it, described the world and they were not in it, feminists resisted. We took the tools of feminism, we took the collective understanding she talks about, and we stood up, demanding to be seen and heard. That's what that statement I read a little earlier is about. In part, of course, it's a litany of violence, but it's more than that. It's the women who have been thrust into the void, as Rich says, into that non-being, and sexual slavery is absolutely about making women non-beings. It's about those women showing profound courage and the most absolute determination to be seen and achieving that. I don't know how we're going to solve the world's problems if we don't take ourselves and other women seriously. I don't know how we're going to solve the world's problem if we don't insist that other people take women seriously. I don't know how we're going to solve the world's problems if we don't challenge men's violence against us and name it. I don't know how we're going to solve the world's problems if we don't stop the male model of raping the earth. Feminism will thrive because we need it. Feminists will thrive because we need it.